Hey everybody, this is Andy, aka Love Retro BTW, across Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I do a podcast every Saturday called Cafe BTW, a morning gaming podcast, a retrospective look at the wonderful world of retro gaming, from interviews to guests. Join us every Saturday, like a Saturday morning cartoon, starting at 8 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern. Also, if you're on Twitter, please join the brand new retro gaming community, a place to share, connect, and show your love for the retro gaming community. All the links are down below. And remember, enjoy the Gamers Week podcast.
Coming up on the Gamers Week podcast.
480 life, with people with the 480 graphics cards that can see a bump on a fly's nutsack from 1,000 yards away, and trying to compare that to somebody playing Call of Duty on a Switch, where they can't
I just need to know which graphics card I need to be buying, because can we rewind? I don't know if you said it. I just want to get the model and yeah.
That game, along with Visage, man, every single time that I loaded it up, I would sweat and I would shake. And those are the only horror games that really ever kind of did that to me.
Oh my God. I agree with Visage. Like, that's one of the only games that I, like, after playing it for like 30 minutes, it's like, I'm not, like, I don't feel strong enough to go back to that. I'm like that weirdo kid that at like 6, 7 years old was watching It and Poltergeist, like, on repeat. But like, you give me Visage and I'm chicken. There's no chance. There's no chance. Yeah. Even like, I streamed it and people were like, Joy, just do this thing. I'm like, I'm not moving. I'm stuck in thing. I'm not going.
All right, guys. So you want to go ahead and get this started?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, the worst, and the weirdest headlines of the past week of the video game industry. This is episode 61. Today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. And my name is Ryan, aka Retro Game Brews, and I will be your host for this evening. And I have with me a gentleman whose jealousy over my patron-specific names keep him sleepless nightly in a cold sweat. Donnie G. Donnie, how you doing today?
I don't know how I ever get any sleep when I just lay in bed seething about it. I guess I get so mad that my brain's like, all right, I've had enough, and just immediately shuts down. That's why I don't remember ever falling asleep.
There it is, man. All right. Well, I unfortunately do have to inform everyone that Blue has actually quit the podcast and joined the circus as part of an acrobatic act called the Flying Douche Canoes. We wish her well.
Wait, stop. Is that real?
No.
I was going to say, I have to go to the circus.
Flying Douche Canoe.
I would go to that.
Totally. And you know what? We wish her well, and we hope that she fails miserably and rejoins the show soon. But we do have an awesome guest here today, Joy from the Sensitive Joy channel. She's going to be filling in for Blue for this episode. So, Joy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself here to our audience?
I would be happy to. I am Joy, also known as Sensitive Joy on the web. I am a writer. I am also a variety streamer, mostly doing horror games as well as some TTRPG actual plays. I also am a social work student. I'm in my grad program pursuing social work to become a therapist. Video games are kind of my outlet. So I'm very happy to be here talking about video games with you all. It's pretty perfect.
Now, wait a second. You said you were a variety streamer, but before the show started, you were telling us how you primarily only stream Spider Solitaire. So
yeah. Okay.
Why
Well, I was hoping. Listen. I'm trying to get them in, like, kill them with my charm, and then they can never leave. So now that I'm outing myself, thanks everyone. Please pity follow.
You're welcome.
Well, Joy, then again, thank you so much for joining us. We will have links to Joy's stuff all over the web here in the show notes for today's show.
Yay, thank you.
Awesome. So why don't we go ahead and jump into our reviews, reactions, and requests for the week. Starting off with Ramboski. Episode 60 was hilarious, and you all killed it with that Willy Wonka cocaine musical bit. Laugh at my... you guys fucking rock.
Come with me, and you'll see what it feels like to be on some cocaine.
I knew you were going to land somewhere. I didn't know it was going to be there.
So, Donnie, I think that you and I just need to spend some time before our next stream just coming up with all the lyrics to every single song from Willy Wonka.
Dude, I could belt it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Man. I'll cover a few Oompa Loompa songs, and I think we'll be good.
Yes, let's do it.
Wow, this sounds right up there with the traveling douche canoes. Like, this is much potential.
What do you get when you smoke the crack rock?
All right, this is going to be a hard one to beat. So next up, Snip Pup says, awesome podcast. Finally, I have something to accompany while I work home alone. And Shwetty said, here for the cinnamon starfish.
Nice. Yes. And now, it's time for the...
Very important.
There's no other way to say that.
None.
No, it was perfect. Where's my Oscar? Every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP, which is our very important poll. If you'd like to participate, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. Now, the question for this week is, if you could pick any job in the video game industry, what would you choose? Coming in third was the audio engineer at 15.7%. In second place was the programmer at 16.1%. And leading the pack this week with 37.7% was a developer. Although a developer of what? It wasn't specified. 30.5% of you said other. So let's take a look at some of the comments from the poll. At Terrence Watson says, I'd like to be a creative producer's assistant. Imagine the guy who would see several concept designs for an entire cast, and I'd be the one who would pick out which one would go live in the final product or not. I think that would work. At EC Meyer says, game writer. Of course. At Marginal Eyes says, I'd like to do radio station playlists on GTA games. Oh my God, those are so excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
World/environment art on the next Elder Scrolls game would be fun too.
Oh, heck yeah.
At 0000 Jordan says, I'd like my job to be the guy that brings back instruction manuals inside physical packages. Jordan, you are the real MVP.
Yeah. The hero we didn't know we needed.
Oh my God. I remember those things used to be like stories. You'd get this thick booklet from either a Sega Genesis, a Super Nintendo, hell, even PlayStation games, PlayStation 2 games, where it painted the entire world for you. And now we get a slip with a code, and that's it.
Those instruction manuals were what you would take to the bathroom with you when nothing else was around.
Now we just take our little mini computers.
Like, Mom, I don't need your home and garden. I will take my N64 instruction manual to the toilet with me.
I need to read up on Shadowrun, Mom.
Yes.
At Wizard of Zardoz says, whatever job allows me to sit on the Square Enix board and slap their members in the back of the head when they mention NFTs and remind them that they're a JRPG company at their core. Slap Czar? Smack Sultan? Chop CEO?
Well done, sir.
So, Joy, based on this question, you're the guest of the week. Go ahead and tell us what your job would be in the video game industry.
I would 100% be somewhere in the developer category, but not a developer. Don't get me wrong. Not a developer at all. I would be more of a game designer. So I would be the person that like conceptualizes things, has ideas.
Okay.
Really just uses their brain and then does no work after that. I'm just like, I have an idea. This idea is valuable. Everyone else do something with it. That's me. The idea person, not the execution person. I am lazy.
You're a suggestion engineer.
Yes, 100%. And thanks for making me sound fancy. I've never had my laziness so exalted before. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I am a suggestion engineer, 100%. I have so many ideas, and I think they often don't go anywhere because I don't always have the connections or the people to see them through. So
Okay.
being a part of a development team as a designer, like a game designer, would be, I think, very cool for me.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ryan, what about you?
So for me, it's boils down to two things. It's what I would want to be and what I have the skills to be. So what I would want to be is I absolutely love music. I would love to be an audio engineer or a composer of some kind. Because to me, a lot of times when you're talking about video games, the experience that you get has a lot to do with kind of the environment that you're in, and that music always kind of plays into that. Now,
Right.
granted, music now in games today is probably less of a focus as it was, back in the 16 and the 8-bit era. Because if you didn't have any music, the game would be really awkward and terrible. But nowadays it's more about mood. But so that means that if I wanted to be an audio engineer, I'd want to do something that's like neo retro, like a Shovel Knight or something like that. Problem is, I have no skill whatsoever. I can't read music. The last time I played an instrument was the violin in 3rd grade, and that was hot cross buns, and that's about it. So
Nice.
yeah, that's where I'm at. So if I could do the whole Neo from the Matrix thing, put something in the back of my head to teach me all that stuff, and I'd be ready to go. Perfect, audio engineer.
Whoa, I can play the tuba.
Because that's exactly the musical choice I would go with, man. Right, the instrument of the day would be tuba. Right.
Right.
Wow. See, for me, it'd be glockenspiel.
There it
100%
is.
glockenspiel.
It's like glockenspiel.
Could you imagine a video game that's entirely glockenspiel?
It's very big in the Dutch lands. Yes.
Yeah.
But for what I have skill for, I would say probably a game writer, right? Spending some time putting together the dialogue and some of the explanations behind the game, and really watching game come to life from some of the written words or things that would eventually become voiceovers.
Right.
I've got some skill doing certain things like that, as part of my job, as well as, when it comes to marketing. But I also enjoy writing stories as well, kind of on my own time. So at the end of the day, that would be great. Third option is a thing that doesn't exist is video game historian. That would pay really well. That's the biggest caveat here.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the three. So at the end of the day, yeah.
Wouldn't it would be, in my opinion, amazing to be paid to know everything there is, or if you didn't know, to research it and then know stuff about video games and how they came to be, like you do with the Gaming History 101, and just different things like with companies building up and then getting merged with and then crumbling down and selling off their assets and new companies sprouting from that. I mean, who wouldn't want to get paid to do that?
Well, there is the job that we talked about recently, which was the Sonic lore master for Sega. Which
that's correct.
Yeah, I couldn't do Sonic, but I could do a lot of other lore masters out there.
I feel like a video game historian would be so fun, but I also feel like you run the risk of running into people that are just like so into themselves because they are like the video game historian. I honestly feel like that guy would be insufferable. And neither one of you fits that bill. So like you could never. I'm sorry. You need to let the dream go.
How dare you call yourself the video game historian? I am.
Exactly. Like that's how I see it. Like a pissing contest. I'm like, well, I know about XYZ. Well, I know about like I don't know.
Did you know what the size of the chip on the Super Nintendo is? I do. That's how granular that pissing contest would go.
100%, 100%. It would come down to the most minute, insignificant thing. That's like, who knows the most obscure factoids and how far back it goes. But at the same time, I love history, so it's like that would be really badass.
Yeah, and knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
So, Donnie, what about you?
This was a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it and mulled it over for at least 2 days. I'm like you. I love music. I've created a few different pieces with some freeware that they have, and that's the good thing about today is that the technology is so advanced that even somebody like you who doesn't have experience, or somebody like me who doesn't have experience, I dabble with playing the guitar and stuff like that. But picking up a drum machine or a beats machine that anybody can download off the App Store for free, or you spend $5 on it, and now you have all of these beats with these pre-made sounds that you can put together a pretty damn cool track. Anybody could do that. That would be an amazing thing to do. I am an artist by nature. My creativity sucks though. I've been drawing since I was a kid, but if somebody asks me to draw something, I'm like, okay, like I can kind of see it, but I typically do better if I have pictures of things that I can draw.
Right.
So I wouldn't be good as a concept artist, because if I can't see it, I don't do well with fleshing it out, putting it on paper.
Right.
So my degree is in game art and design, but I've never used it. I did like, however, set designs. So I did storyboard work. I enjoyed that. So I could do storyboarding. I could create environments, do lighting within that, and just kind of get the overall feel of how things should be in the environment, or something with audio. If that didn't work out, I could just be the president and CEO of, some company and tell people that, hey, you're going to get laid off while I get my bonus.
Fit right in. All right, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at our patron shout-outs for the week. We couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. We have a new patron to announce. A big thank you and welcome to Johnny Boobat. Johnny, woo!
That name is so amazing.
It is. It's amazing.
Good gosh.
And I think maybe you'll think some of these names are amazing too.
I'm reading the list. I'm like, ooh, okay.
So he'll be joining Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, Frank Grande, J&L Game, Love Retro BTW, Steven Sand, Ramboski, Terry Kinnair, Ducks in Disguise, Jim and Colleen, Games with Coffee, Hybrid Divide, You Fall Before Me, Davey PGH, the Red Ox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, #1 Blue Sick Boys fan, Random Retro Dude, Princess Kitty Mew Mew, Rai Secret Best Friend, Mega Retro Man, Gamatroid, Emo S, Bill Tucker, Rybread's #1 fan, Fruitcake's #1 stan, Ducks with Thick Thighs, The Wizard of Zardoz, Bobson Dugnut, Great Saiyaman 81, D&T Zilla Guy, and Geek with That. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope that you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. You also gain access to our weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, so why don't we go ahead and jump into our headlines for the week.
Our headline segment is proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. Right now, they're doing a deep dive on the late 90s game show what? If they're doing... Okay.
Yep.
Throut?
Throut?
That tripped me up.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Rightfully so. That's a word.
I was like, you sure it's not throat? But it's
Throat?
Throut. Okay. Right now, they're doing a deep dive on the late 90s game show Throut and Neck, where callers would play online mini games for prizes. Visit them at retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes.
So what was your favorite 80s/90s game show about
Starcade? Well,
Starcade. It's good.
It is. It's good. But there was another one in the 90s where people played video games. I think it was on Nickelodeon or something.
I believe that's Nick Arcade.
Nick Arcade. There you go.
Ooh.
I'm also going to go with Starcade. I think we talked about this either last week or prior, but the awkwardness of the host being in his, like 50s and trying to connect with the kids.
Right.
The cringe level on that.
That's so cringe.
It makes it so incredibly good. He talking to the kids like, oh yeah, well, when I play Pac-Man, I like to do this. And like, what do you like to do? And they're just staring at him like, what?
Shouldn't you be reading the paper and balancing your taxes?
From VGC, the next Capcom Cup will award $1 million to the winner. Capcom has announced the next Capcom Cup will have a first place prize of $1 million. In a tweet posted on the official Street Fighter Twitter account, it was announced that the next Pro Tour, which consists of numerous qualification events worldwide, will culminate in Capcom X with its large prize. Capcom Cup X will be played on Street Fighter VI, with the winner receiving a whopping $1 million. The tweet reads, adding, "Who wants to be a millionaire?" The prize money was announced during Capcom 9 over the weekend, where it was also revealed that the total prize fund will be over $2 million. The next Capcom Pro Tour and Capcom X will be the first official Capcom tournament to feature Street Fighter VI as its main game. Street Fighter VI will be released on June 2nd on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, S, and Steam. One of its more notable new features is World Tour mode, which will let players create their own character, explore a series of open world areas, and learn moves from existing Street Fighter characters. The deluxe edition will include the Year 1 Character Pass, which includes 4 additional characters, 4 additional characters' colors, and 4,200 drive tickets. The Ultimate Edition will include a Year 1 Ultimate Pass, which adds a further 8 character colors and an extra 3,500 drive tickets. Late last year, Capcom confirmed the full lineup of Street Fighter VI characters, which includes all 8 original World Warriors from Street Fighter II. This just makes me wish that I was any good at Street Fighter.
Right.
Any good at Street Fighter. I'm so bad at Street Fighter, but you better believe I'm going to start practicing.
Yeah, I just can't believe that we've gotten to the point in which a winner of a esports tournament is going to pull down $1 million for themselves.
Yeah.
That's bonkers.
Right.
Like, I feel like I hear of like whole esports teams going,
Right.
and like,
right.
but like to games that are like known for that, like Dota or something like that. But like, I did not know that this could possibly be a thing, getting paid that much money for Street Fighter. But color me intrigued.
Just, and these kids, they're going to have so many opportunities to become millionaires, whether it's, creating a drama page on YouTube or, selling themselves some other way online.
Right.
Or just winning $1 million playing Street Fighter 6 or, whatever it is moving forward. We didn't have this growing up.
No, not at all.
No.
We had the lucky, enter, send this in from the back of an Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine, and you could be chosen. And next thing you know, you're out $4.95, and you never hear back from them.
Sad day.
And the biggest prizes back in the day were win your own Street Fighter cabinet. Sweet, that's
Right.
awesome. But how many Street Fighter cabinets are you going to buy with $1 million freaking dollars?
I'm very excited for this. I can play fighting games. I can do so quite, well. I've played some of the older Street Fighter games, like Street Fighter 5 and Street Fighter 4. They're great, but I've never tried to branch into the competitive realm. The most that I've done is kick my wife's butt and my kids' butts on our annual Thanksgiving Tekken tournament. So I've got that going for me.
You never know. That could lead to great things.
Right. I could say, yes, I'm here. I'm going to win this whole thing. And then get beaten in the first 10 seconds and I'm out of the tournament.
Out of curiosity, Donnie, is the tournament before or after dinner?
Ooh, good question. It's typically after dinner.
Which is a missed opportunity to gloat because, you're going around the table saying the things that you're thankful for. And you're I'm thankful for the fact that I'm so much better than everybody else at Tekken.
Well, and I think it's strategically planned to be done after dinner because they're so lethargic with all the food and they're sluggish and they're not really on their A game. And I'm just kicking it up into high gear.
Everyone notices that Donnie's not eating the turkey to get the tryptophan. Parent, gotta get ready.
So one of the things I'm looking at here is their different editions. It says the deluxe edition will include the 1 year character pass or year 1 character pass, which includes 4 additional characters, 4 additional characters colors, which I could care less about, and 4,200 drive tickets. The ultimate edition will include a 1 year or a year 1 ultimate pass, which adds a further 8 characters colors and an extra 3,500 drive tickets. So what about those 4 additional characters? Are those characters that because you bought the deluxe edition, you have access to, and anybody who bought the standard edition won't?
It sounds like that. Yeah. That's how they get you.
Yep. I would imagine that DLC is also an option for that, though, if you didn't buy. So if you wanted one of the 4 characters, I would imagine you'd be able to purchase.
Yeah, but then the money that you spent on the individual characters probably equates to what it would have been for
Oh,
the
of
deluxe
course.
edition. Yeah. So you're screwed either way.
I'm just hoping one of the 8 color characters is like Black Goth, so we can have like a
Oh
goth
yeah.
looking Guile, you know.
That would be so good.
With his face painted white and an upside down cross on his forehead. Great. I don't care about anything. I'm not even going to do my Sonic Boom.
That'd just be like Sonic Boom.
he's just sulking somewhere. He's like, I'm not even gonna do it. Whatever, I don't care, poser.
It's what you want me to do, conformist.
All right, next up from Engadget. Megan and Get Out producer Blumhouse is moving into horror games. Horror movie powerhouse Blumhouse is getting into video games. The company behind the hits like Megan, Get Out, The Purge, and Insidious is opening a production and publishing division that will work on original horror games for PC consoles and mobile. We're in the scary story business. We do films, we do TV, and there is a massive growing segment in media and entertainment called gaming. Blumhouse president Abhijay Parkash told Bloomberg, "The space is hundreds of billions of dollars. We're in great position to try and access it." Veteran game producer Zach Wood, who was recently involved in Prey, Mooncrash, and Redfall, will run the creative side of Blumhouse Games. Don Scheller, a former PlayStation executive who works closely with indie studios, will oversee the operation and financial aspects. As with the film side of the production company, Blumhouse Games will keep the budgets modest. It plans to release games that cost under $10 million to make, rather than adapting its own movies, something Blumhouse has tried in the past, into games. The company will look for projects that are in development and offer studios financial support, creative insight, and the Blumhouse name to slap on their titles. It's hardly the first time that a movie studio has opened a gaming division. Disney used to have one, as did Lucasfilms, which now licenses its properties to external developers. The games division at Annapurna Interactive has perhaps set the template for Blumhouse Games to follow, though. The games division at Annapurna Pictures has an excellent track record as an indie publisher and has released the likes of What Remains of Edith Finch, Neon White, Stray, and others over the last 6 years.
I am so excited for that. I'm so excited. Like I didn't even know this was happening. And when I saw this headline, like this was the singular headline that told me, okay, Joy, maybe you need to read video game headlines. Like I'm that excited about this. Like I think especially with the way that Annapurna has like led the way with just creating these like cinematic, atmospheric, like just profoundly influential games. Like this could be really big.
I was gonna say, Donnie, you're also a huge fan of horror and horror games. Is this something that you're looking forward to?
I am, but it's not like I'm like super hyped. I like Blumhouse. I like what they've done. More importantly, with the newer Halloween movie franchise. The last one sucked though. Don't ever see it. I'm excited though for some of their movies like Megan and the Black Phone. I still haven't seen Get Out yet. I know it's been out for like 6 years. Just I don't watch a lot of TV anymore or shows. It's like sometimes whenever I do sit down in front of the TV, it's mostly a sporting event or something. But I've seen, oh God, I've seen the trailer for Megan, and when that doll is in the hallway doing that little shimmy dance, that's the thing of nightmares. And if they want to bring that kind of stuff into the video game realm, I'm all for it, because we all know that it's a different experience from watching a movie versus playing a video game. Playing a video game, you get to actually do things in there that dictate how the game goes, how your character works. Movies, you just sit there and watch. You get jump scared, yada, yada, yada. You move on. This is just like what we talked about before, Joy. You're playing something like Visage. You're playing something like Madison. If you're playing something like Megan or the Black Phone or Get Out, and you know that this is probably not going to end anytime soon, for a true horror fan, I think that sells it. It's a done deal.
And I think there's something like really powerful about when storytellers that come from like not the video, but like cinematic video based like storytellers, when they come into video games, I think there's something very powerful that can happen there, because it's one thing to like be someone who makes video games, but you're coming from making movies into video games. I feel like there's a potential to tell a story in a whole different way, considering so many different perspectives and artistic choices and even writing choices. I mean, just with these films alone, like The Purge is huge, fantastic. Get Out is unreal good. So like knowing that it's Blumhouse doing this, I'm more excited than I would be like if almost any other like horror movie powerhouse came along.
And to me, with what you just said about bringing somebody who worked in the video or in the movie industry into the video game industry, you don't have to worry about something like talent. You don't have to worry about the actors who just like don't want to shoot the scene, who think like, oh, I think it should be shot like this, or I think that this character would say this. It's like, nope, I've got full creative control over it because it's a video game. We wrote the dialogue. We have voice actors come in and read this stuff, and then we direct the video game how we want it. So that ends it.
Right.
And now that's our experience.
I think it's going to be fantastic. And I'm really excited to see like the first headline in a couple of years about the first game that they come out with. I think it's probably going to be a really big name and probably be a really big success. But I'll have to pay attention to the headlines to know.
Well, as long as you keep listening to the show, you'll know when it comes out.
Right, true. Yeah, have me back on then. Be like, oh, we have to remember the Blumhouse game is coming out. I have a note here from 2023. Joy wants to come back. Yeah.
What I find interesting too is that they're kind of trying to keep the budget small, and it looks like they're trying to take indie developers and essentially beef up their experience, give them some insight into how storytelling is done. And I think that also really opens the door for different ideas as to what a game can be. The one thing I will say is that at 10 million for the budget, that does definitely hinder a little bit about what can be done. I was thinking like, oh, well, this would be a great opportunity to like do a VR game, but that's probably more expensive than 10 million.
Probably.
To make. But what that says though, is that if they see success with this, then chances are if the business is doing better, they can pump more into those games and potentially get even better.
Of course.
So very, very
you take the $10 million investment, you get a return of $70 million. So now that's $60 million that you can put forth on the next project if you so choose to. So you can just keep, snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. Not to say that you want to spend $100 million on a particular game, because I think that's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, just keep using your return of investment and grow your particular division. All right, from VGC, Miyamoto says Nintendo is always working on Mario, but it isn't ready to share anything just yet. In a recent interview, IGN asked why a new Mario game hadn't been announced to coincide with this month's opening of America's first Super Nintendo World, or the upcoming release of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. We're always working on Mario, so when we get to a time where we can share information, we'll certainly do so, Nintendo Representative Director Miyamoto replied. The last new Mario experience was Bowser's Fury, which arrived in 2021 as a short add-on adventure for Super Mario 3D World's Nintendo Switch re-release. A year earlier, the franchise celebrated its 35th anniversary with a series of product releases including compilation remaster package Super Mario 3D All-Stars, Last Man Standing Switch online game Super Mario 35, and Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch. The last new mainline 3D series entry was 2017's Super Mario Odyssey, while the last 2D game, Super Mario Maker 2, arrived in 2019. Miyamoto, who recently turned 70 years old, was speaking during a trip to the US to attend the grand opening of Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios Hollywood. During the interview, he also briefly discussed his current workload and what he might be interested in taking on in the future. In terms of the theme park, there's still Orlando and Singapore left, and there's still movie work left. So there's a lot of things that are still left on my plate, he said. On the way, if I find something new and interesting, I would love to take part in that, especially if there's any kind of new technology. I would love to see which one of our talents would be best suited for that. Mario is being worked to death.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But again, I am surprised that they didn't have something planned for either the movie or Super Mario World coming out.
Right.
That is, you would expect it for them to be like, hey, let's cash in on this. And it could be something stupid like that game they came up with about going to Universal Studios, where you could like go on the Jaws ride and pick up garbage as a side quest.
Are you kidding? It's like a simulator. It's a real life working simulator.
Yep. And it's something just as simple as that. to coincide with this release. I'm
Right.
genuinely surprised. But then again, we were all expecting something to come out for Zelda for the 35th anniversary, and that never happened. So maybe Nintendo just doesn't care about us.
For me, I feel like I kind of just wish that like they would just remaster like classic like Mario games kind of like every like 10 years or so, but not continually make new Mario. And I only say that because like my son like loves Mario, but like he doesn't care really like what new perks or anything there is. I feel like kids are always going to be drawn to Mario because of who Mario is. But I feel like the more they come out with like all these like new games, I feel like I don't know, it's just starting to lose its interest to me. And maybe that's just because like I don't know. I don't have any good basis for saying that. I feel like Mario's never going to go away. It's going to be a classic. He will always be relevant, but I would prefer remasters for new consoles and like PC upgrades and things like that, but not necessarily new games all the time.
I'm in the same boat. I think at this point in my gaming preferences, Mario is definitely not top of the line for me. I know a lot of people that by me saying that, I'm probably going to get added at, but you know, when it comes down to it, I think that it's basically the same gameplay for the most part. You know, it's platforming, it's puzzle solving, it's collecting, which to me just that's not my style of gameplay that I'm going after. But the thing is, that's interesting is that you brought up a good point about the fact that your son is really into Mario. There seems to be like this generational thing, right? Where you get to that point. I hate to say like you get too old for Mario because that's not it, but it gets to the point where you've played enough Mario that you're like, all right,
right.
Maybe it's time to try something new. But the younger generation sees Mario for what it is, and 99 times out of 100, it's a really spectacular game. It's really well produced and developed, and even the audio portion of it is top notch. So that longevity, and the reason I think that they pump out so many is essentially to catch that next generation as they're coming through.
No, I agree.
I will agree with you on that one because that's kind of why I stopped playing the Nintendo back in the 90s, in the mid 90s, is because you had The Legend of Zelda, you had Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, then the Super Nintendo came, and then you have Super Mario World, Super Mario All-Stars, and then A Link to the Past, and it's like, you know what, they're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Granted, it was a new game, new experience, new technology, but then the N64 came out and it was Majora's Mask and it was Ocarina of Time. It's like, I've kind of seen this. It's a different story, but then again, it's not. I've seen this all before. So that's kind of why I moved away from Mario and Nintendo in the 90s and switched over to PlayStation, because it was just to seem like a different experience, a more grown-up experience. Now, with that being said, I do love Mario. I love the draw of Mario. I love the simplicity, especially some of the older games, the old and newer games. They're challenging. They still present a level of difficulty that kind of keeps me coming back. It's not super easy. It's something I'm like, I need to come back and revisit and see if I still got it.
All right. From Nintendo Life, Generation Esports officially partners with Nintendo for Middle School Esports event. Generation Esports and Nintendo have announced that they are officially partnering up to introduce a handful of Nintendo games into the Middle School Esports League Spring Major. Generation Esports is a scholastic gaming company that focuses on the impact of video games in schools in a positive way. Responsible for one of the biggest leagues for high school esports, it wants to make competing easy, accessible, and healthy, particularly from a mental health perspective. Starting on February 27th, the MSEL is a free-to-compete league where students can participate in competitions in a constructive, family-friendly environment. Nintendo's partnership means that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Splatoon 3 will be added to the organization's growing roster of games. In a statement, Generation Esports says that it is proud to announce our official partnership with Nintendo, starting with the Middle School Esports League, suggesting that perhaps more editions or future events will be supported by Nintendo with the company. CCO of Generation Esports, John Bukowski, shared that we are looking forward to nurturing the next generation of esports by fostering these environments and offering these opportunities to help students get into the esports scene.
John Bukowski, weird name. It sounds like something else.
Yeah, I thought the exact thing. I'm glad that your mind also went there, because when it came out of my mouth, I was like, never want to say that again.
My
Sorry.
mind's always in the gutter, so
Oh, same.
it's fine.
I am gutter trash, but this is wholesome. This is quite wholesome, because when you think of like esports competitions, you think of that almost like, and I hate to say it, but like toxic competition that can get
Oh, yeah.
really nasty, really terrible, and actually be pretty bad for people's mental health when it comes to losing what's on the line, people making fun of them, things like that. So I think that them being aware that accessibility and how healthy competition can sometimes not be is a good thing, that they're actually really keeping that in mind. Like, we want to introduce these kids to esports in a way that like isn't going to completely F up their mental health if they lose or if they don't do great or things like that.
It's totally going to do that. Are you kidding me? They're tailoring this to middle school children.
Right.
This
right.
is going to say that it's going to be a constructive and family friendly environment. It's not going to be all like, oh, good game there, Jimmy. You really handled that turn well on that last track. I'm very proud of you. No, it's going to be like, how does my ass taste, you fucking noob? You screw this up, and it's I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be a middle school child. I know what it's still like.
I skipped that, so I don't know. I skipped middle school children, like
Oh,
childhood.
really?
So yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking of like my son, who like he's 5 and he already like he kicks my butt in the most basic games. And like it's wild to me that like I'm just trying to think about this from like the way that they are possibly thinking about it. Kids are already gaming at like 3 to 5 because they see their parents gaming and people are gaming so much more. So by the time kids are middle school age, like most of them are better gamers than us by now.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
I think
for sure.
about like when I'm playing Fortnite and like I know I'm getting my butt kicked by a 12-year-old. Like I know. And it's like, and I am the older one that's like, oh god damn it. Like I know 12-year-old just beat me.
Right.
I feel like there's no way to avoid because of the kind of games kids play at such a young age now, like Fortnite and Apex Legends and Valorant, that are already so toxic. I think they're probably trying to mitigate that level of exposure that the kids already have because they're
Right.
already playing those games. So I think they're trying to like rewrite the narrative that the kids are already exposed to because they've been gaming since they were like toddlers, basically. So
Right.
they're like hopefully trying to get in there and be like, hey, we know you guys are playing these games that really make you toxic on the internet, you little brats, but maybe you could do it a different way. I'm hoping that that's how it works, but maybe that's just like the naive person in me.
You know, other thing that kind of comes to mind here is Nintendo hasn't done a lot to support the esports community. So this is actually a change in, I think, the right direction, though. Prior to that, considering they hadn't had really their own league to sponsor, it's been required that it's all been independent things, you know? And so by creating this esports league, maybe this is the first step in the right direction for Nintendo to admit that they have some games that are potentially esports, you know, juggernauts. They named the 3 right there: Smash Bros, Mario Kart, and Splatoon 3. By all means, I'm okay with this if Nintendo decides that esports is actually a thing that they can be a part of. They can be a part of that conversation.
Really interested to see where this goes for sure.
I am interested as well, especially from what you just said, Ryan. There's really no reason why Nintendo shouldn't put its name associated with some of these tournaments. It's getting your intellectual property in the hands of so many more people. You know, granted, you shouldn't just sit from afar, and I'm talking about from a company perspective.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just sit from afar and just say, "Oh, buy our games." Yes, we're giving you the luxury of buying our games. So yeah, that's it. No, just engage with your fans, engage with the base that makes you a successful company. And all we're asking you to do is kind of give us the nod to go and play your video games on a national level, or even like just a regional level, to say we want this level of competitiveness because this is what your game does. It draws out the competitive people, and you know, some people choose to do it toxically. Is that the word? Toxic?
We'll roll with that.
It sounds magical. I like it.
Some people handle it that manner, but there are also other people who are very, very nice and polite, and they do that. Oh, good game, sir. Yes, very, very good.
They
game.
all sound like that.
Yeah, exactly. I sit and play Warzone, and some of the chat stuff that I hear after I kill somebody, it's like I can never repeat those words.
Oh, we got Yoshi on this podcast. Oh.
Yes, we do. I would love to get to a spot where it's no longer that level of talk when you're competing against somebody, but I can understand when you're in that competitive zone, but it doesn't seem like the Nintendo games make for that kind of competitiveness.
Well, and I think Nintendo does a good job of making sure that you can't really communicate with anyone else. So regardless if they're being toxic or not, you have no idea.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But in a real life tournament, yeah, you can look over and call your opponent some bad word and get the entire audience aghast, like, oh my God, did you hear what he said?
I think you're spot on when it comes to Nintendo in general, because there isn't that interaction. They've kind of put that wall up. It creates a much more welcoming gaming experience. Interestingly enough, though, there are ways that you can certainly be toxic in some of those games. For example, with Splatoon 3, there's a term called squid bagging, which is the same thing as tea bagging, right? When you splat someone or kill them, it shows you that person and what they're doing for like a 10-second period, and what people will do is duck in the paint over and over again as a way to as a middle finger to you.
Of course.
So it's there. It's just it's not common, and it's also considered bad form. So yeah, it is what it is. But
when you splat someone, that's
mind in the gutter.
So with Nintendo here, where does it stop? They're now going into middle school. Do they then go to grade school and preschool, and now they're in the womb? They're like, it's like, hey, we want to stick our controllers there, and your baby inside can start playing some. We'll see if we can get it to play Tetris.
We've got a new phenom here. He's only 40 days old and has been taking the Tetris world by storm.
Wow, can you do that the rest of the podcast, please?
Yes, I can.
That's a mixture of Robin Leach and Commander Norrington from the Pirates of the Caribbean.
What a hybrid.
Yes.
Oh, what a gift.
The game announcer we didn't know we needed.
Yeah.
All right, so before we jump into our top 3 new releases for the week, why don't we go ahead and announce our winner for our podcast giveaway. So as I'm sure many of you are waiting with bated breath to hear if your name is going to be announced, we are giving away a copy of Octopath Traveler 2, as well as a Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. So can I get a drum roll, Danny? Congratulations to Kuniachi and Ingrid Kiki. Feel free to contact us, either Retro Game Brews or at Gamers Week PC, to inform us that you heard the podcast, you are ready to accept the prize. It's going to be on a first-come, first-served basis, so whoever contacts me first gets to choose Octopath Traveler 2 or the Retroid Pocket. But thank you to everybody who ended up entering into the contest. We had 916 different entries.
Wow.
And that took me about 2.5 hours to separate all the names out and get that ready to find out who our winner was going to be. So while I love the fact that we got some exposure, that's my limit. 2.5 hours is about it. All right, so why don't we take a look at our top 3 new releases for the week. First up is Octopath Traveler 2. It's going to be on PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC. It's a bustling area within large vessels, navigate busy sea routes, and the power of steam gives birth to new technologies. Some people thrill to glamorous stars on the stage and industry, while others are brought to tears by war, plague, and poverty. In this faraway realm, 8 travelers from 8 different regions venture forth for their own reasons. Step into the shoes and explore the land as you see it fit. Using their unique talents to aid you along your journey, begin your adventure as one of 8 new travelers, each of which have their own origins, motivations, and unique skills. Next up is Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. for the Nintendo Switch. An adventure of deluxe proportions awaits. The Tough Puff Kirby is back for a 1 to 4 player platforming adventure across planet Popstar. Help Magalore rebuild his ship with newly added mecha and sand copy abilities. Float and fight along with friends on the same system as you control Kirby. Each other player can control a different Kirby or one of Kirby's iconic friends like King Dede, Medic Knight, and Bandana Waddle Dee. And last up is Horizon Call of the Mountain, PSVR 2. Ascend the towering peaks of Karja Sundum as Riaz. I hate names.
Names are hard. Words are hard.
We're going to roll with that one. I'm not even going to repeat it, so this is going to be in the podcast.
Yeah.
Disgrace former soldier and unravel a new mystery surrounding the machines that redeem yourself and save your people. You will also meet Aloy, other familiar faces, and new characters along the way. Experience the majestic world of Horizon like never before in this new adventure for the PlayStation VR 2. Stunning visuals and innovative features of the new PSVR 2 Sense controls fully immerse you into the world of Horizon for an experience like no other. So taking a look at these 3 choices, Donnie, which one would you pick for the week?
It's tough. It's tough because I don't find myself as an RPG player any longer.
Boo,
However,
boo, hiss, boo.
Look, I know, boo this man.
I gotta go.
Nicely put. When I look at Octopath Traveler 2, I might add, I'm looking at some of the screenshots and it looks exactly like our Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy 2, our Dragon Warrior, our Secret of Mana, our Chrono Triggers, but in 3D. And I'm blown away by what I'm seeing. So the characters look 2D, but the environments are in 3D. And I have to tell you, if I would have seen this back in the 90s when we had, our Secret of Mana and Chrono Trigger, I would have been absolutely blown away, just like I'm blown away now. So seeing this, I might actually pick up Octopath Traveler 2. But with that being said, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe looks like a fun game just from some of the visuals that I've seen. I haven't seen the gameplay to really know anything about it. It looks visually stunning. Horizon Call of the Mountain. I have yet to play any of the Horizon games, so I don't know what I would be getting into. I know the groan of sorrow. I hear it constantly in my life. Just the visuals, again, looks like an epic game. Something like from Breath of the Wild or with Shadow of the Colossus. So really, any of these games is probably a pickup for me.
Nice. Joy, what about you?
That would definitely be Horizon Call of the Mountain for me. But, that would also mean I have to get a PSVR too. And that's I'm not so sure how attainable that is right now. But, if that were not anything that inhibits me from getting the game, I would absolutely get that. Like, I loved the Horizon games. I played the first game, I want to say 2 or 3 times. The next game I only played once, but I enjoyed the DLCs. I've enjoyed everything about that universe, and I think that experiencing it from VR would be stunning. It would be very cool.
I think most of these environments or most of these games, if you throw them into a VR environment that we get to experience, my mind would be blown.
100%. Kirby, imagining Kirby in VR would be kind of frightening. Like big gigantic Kirby just kind of rolling along. I could get a little scared, but I'd be down to try it.
How do you do the suck mechanic in VR with Kirby?
I didn't want to talk about that. I was actually on my mind, but I was going to pass it.
Well, I'm not going dirty here. I'm going strictly vacuum. All right.
I'm honestly just waiting for the suck mechanic to be taken out of context for this podcast.
Oh, and absolutely 100%.
And yes, and just follow you forever.
You would see things flying at your face, like when. Oh God, this is going to sound bad.
It already does. It does. It's not gonna sound bad. It's already bad.
You're there.
Using the suck mechanic, things are going to be flying at your face like fire hydrants, police cars, restaurants, all that stuff coming at you and hitting you in the face, and then going down.
All manner of odds and ends.
I'd like to see that in person.
I am here for the suck mechanic. However, however it works.
That is, I got to add this to our notepad.
Of
Because that's going to be on a
t-shirts?
t-shirt.
Yeah, t-shirts.
I am here for the suck mechanic. Does he work on a Volvo or what? So Ryan, what about you?
So I don't own a PSVR 2, and I don't see myself picking one up for any game. So yeah, that's from a budget standpoint, probably not going to happen. So Horizon Call of the Mountain is off the table. If we look at Kirby's Return to Dreamland, one of the things that was sticking out to me, it said each player can control a different Kirby on the same system. So this is not online. You have to have people that want to play this with you in person. And who talks to people and actually interacts with human beings nowadays? Come on.
Well, I have kids, so therefore I have friends that want to play with me.
I don't. So I'm all by my lonesome, and maybe it's like right hand is Kirby, left hand is King Day. But that's just not as entertaining, I gotta say. So
ambidextrous. I like it.
I could use it, big toe on right foot, big toe on left foot for the other ones. So Octopath Traveler 2, of course, is going to be the choice that I'm going to go with. RPGs, epic storytelling. Octopath Traveler, the first one is a good game. I wouldn't say it's a perfect game. There are certainly some flaws to it that, hopefully they can address in this version of the game. But, it was kind of an experiment for them for Octopath Traveler for the first one. So, but the fact that they saw enough merit in the game to come up with the second one is promising for me. So, as far as things go, Octopath Traveler 2, I think will be awesome. I'll probably end up picking it up, though, on PC rather than Switch or PlayStation 4, just because I think my computer screen is probably a better look than my Switch. So as far as things go, yeah, Octopath Traveler 2, I think, is the route I want to go.
Wow.
Does one have to play Octopath Traveler 1 to really get into Octopath Traveler 2?
That's a good question. I don't know. It sounds like it's all new characters, so I'm going to guess probably not. The one thing I think that it'll probably give you an advantage of is knowing the mechanics of the game that are not about suck.
What about the blow mechanic?
It's definitely, there's a lot of blow mechanics in that game. So yeah, I would imagine that if you played it, at least from a gameplay perspective, it would be easier, but I don't, my guess is it's probably not required. All right, so why don't we jump into our main topic for the week?
From Bloomberg, Microsoft sees no Activision deal without Call of Duty. Microsoft Corp made it clear on Tuesday that there will be no $69 billion deal to buy Activision Blizzard Incorporated unless it comes with the blockbuster title Call of Duty. Less than 2 weeks ago, Britain's antitrust watchdog suggested that Microsoft may need to divest Call of Duty, one of the most lucrative game franchises in the world, to assuage concerns about its Activision Blizzard takeover being harmful to gaming market competition. Microsoft President Brad Smith told reporters after a closed-door hearing in Brussels with European Union regulators that it isn't feasible or realistic to think that one game or one slice of this company can be carved out and separated from the rest as part of the acquisition. Antitrust regulators have a choice, he said. Block the deal or let the future go forward with behavioral guardrails and remedies and bring this title to 150 million more people. That said, Smith struck an optimistic tone Tuesday after a day-long meeting defending the controversial deal. He said PACs struck with Nintendo Corporation and Nvidia Corp to share the game with their platforms meant that as many as 150 million more people would get access to it if the Activision deal is approved. Microsoft's proposed Activision Blizzard deal is the company's largest ever and one of the 30 biggest acquisitions of all time. But aside from Call of Duty, antitrust regulators are concerned about Microsoft's leading position in cloud gaming.
The technology is still in its early days, but Microsoft is ahead of the pack with its Xbox Game Pass subscription service, which offers a library of more than 300 titles for about $10 a month for gamers who want to download games to play on the Xbox or PC. A higher tier of the subscription, at $15 a month, includes cloud gaming, which enables subscribers to stream certain games onto any device, even tablets and phones. While Tuesday's hearing focused on the EU's concerns, authorities in the US and the UK have all started procedures that could potentially block the deal, amid concerns that Microsoft will take an early lead in the cloud by adding Activision's games, eventually making them all exclusive to its own platforms. Britain's Competition and Markets Authority presents possibly the biggest hurdle after the agency earlier this month suggested a number of structural remedies, including the divestiture of the business associated with Call of Duty, the Activision part of the business, or blocking the merger altogether. Microsoft and other interested parties have until Wednesday to respond to the CMA's provisional findings. A hearing to discuss potential remedies will take place in London later this month. If we can address these issues in Brussels, if we can sort through things in London, I'm optimistic that we will advance from Washington, D.C. as well, Smith said in an interview on Bloomberg TV.
Earlier Tuesday, Smith said that the company was more than willing, given our strategy, to address the concerns that others have, whether it's by contracts like we did with Nintendo this morning, or whether it's by regulatory undertakings, as we've consistently been open to addressing. He referred to the signing of a 10-year agreement with Nintendo that will bring Call of Duty to Nintendo devices. Microsoft last year already publicly offered to give Sony Group Corp a similar license for the blockbuster game. Smith used the press conference to implore Sony to agree to the pact in order to bring the games to a wider audience. He said he was ready to pull out a pen for Sony to sign one as he brandished on stage what he said was the actual agreement. Sony didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Microsoft recently received the EU regulators' initial findings in a so-called statement of objections, or SO, laying out the block key's concerns about the deal. According to people familiar with the review, together with the EU hearing, which included Activision Chief Executive Officer Bobby Kotick, NVIDIA, as well as about 100 lawyers, officials, and critics, Sony, and Alphabet Incorporated. The SO will set the path for Microsoft to submit formal remedies in the coming weeks. EU aims to finalize its review by April 11th, by the date could be pushed back still. The UK probe is set to conclude by April 26th, while in the US, the Federal Trade Commission is locked in a potentially far longer process after formally suing to veto the transaction.
Do we really think that people want Call of Duty on the Nintendo Switch?
That's a good point. And they signed a 10-year agreement. And my thought was that, with the Nintendo Switch hardware, because it is limited to, on the system, being 32 gigs, that would eliminate some of the modern versions of Call of Duty, right? Warzone is what, like 110 gigs or something like that, Donnie? Maybe 70 gigs, but it's definitely more than 32.
70 to 90, yeah.
It's definitely more than 32. So my thought was, well, then what other versions of the game are out there that people can play online? And my thought is maybe Call of Duty Mobile.
Well, here's the thing. They did say that they are looking to get into more of the mobile platform or the mobile landscape. Because I remember a couple of episodes ago when we covered that,
right.
They're like, oh, well, I mean, we want to step foot into the mobile game business because of all the generating revenue. And we're like, oh, maybe they could, kind of divest the Call of Duty franchise. But I think that was all a ruse. There was no way in hell that they were ever going to get rid or divest the Call of Duty franchise. That is the bread and butter of this deal.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm thinking that because of the limitations of the Switch, even from a visual standpoint, I mean, if you were to play, say, for example, on your Switch in not docked mode, so your handheld mode, and you're playing against a player who's on PC that has, full headphone setup, they've got the, 70-inch monitor that goes at 120 frames per second and everything like that, that would be the worst gaming experience possible. You would never hear anything, you'd never see anything, you would just die all the time.
480 life, with people with the 480 graphics cards that can see a bump on a fly's nutsack from 1,000 yards away, and trying to compare that to somebody playing Call of Duty on a Switch, where they can't
I just need to know which graphics card you are buying, because I would. Can we rewind? I don't know if you said it. I just want to get the model, and yeah.
It's the 4080 or 4090. Those are right now, I think some of the top of the lines graphics cards.
It's in my cart. Ready for those flies. All right, continue.
She starts playing the game and she can't see him. She's like, this is bullshit.
This is a fucking lie.
I was told I could see nutsacks.
Where are all the nut sacks? It's funny because like this whole merger, it's like I understand, the delay with Call of Duty because Call of Duty is huge. Of course I'm dumbfounded by the Switch stuff. But speaking to one of my friends who works for Activision Blizzard, they were telling me today, I was talking about this with them, and they were like, there was an internal poll, and 96% of the staff wanted the merger to continue. Like they want to see the merger happen. And, they said the reason for that is they want to get rid of Bobby Kotick. Like most of the employees. almost all
Really?
the
Oh, yeah.
employees, so,
I can see that.
yeah.
I wonder if that would bring on a new era of workplace environment coming to work for
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
They have already, and so what I've been hearing, and obviously like this never happened, but there have been like a lot of really great internal things happening at Activision Blizzard, even, just in different departments and the way that like HR departments are handling things. And you obviously don't hear about that because, everyone's still pretty enraged,
Right.
but there are a lot of really good changes just from people who work there and people who femmes as well are saying that like they have experienced and felt the good changes that are happening in that space. And however, the last thing that would really help seal the deal for a lot of these employees is him no longer having a place at the table there. So they really are interested in the merger succeeding for that reason.
And I think often we don't really think about necessarily always the personal aspect of these mergers and what it means for them. So,
Right. Like they'd love a new CEO.
Right.
They would love to be able to proudly say again that they work for Activision Blizzard. And, I was telling my friend, or they were telling me, they were like, 9 years ago, it was a whole different ball game. Like you work for Activision Blizzard and you didn't tell people because they would make too big of a deal
Right.
out of it
Oh,
because they were
yeah.
excited. They wanted to like know you, pick your brain. Like they would think that you're just like the coolest friend they have. But now you don't tell people that you work for Activision Blizzard because you've got idiots like Kotick, running the helm. So, like we don't want that, and we don't want to have to like not boast about our jobs. We love what we do, like so we want to be proud of our jobs.
Absolutely.
But I'd be interested to see what happens because like Call of Duty is like their title, and so if they come to any conclusions here, it'll be interesting to see what they negotiate on that front.
All right, so before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by the Elitist Podcast. It's a show where three friends and occasional guests play games about video games, including trivia games, game show games, and more. Here is this week's trivia question. Good game designers truly have a vision for their games, and sometimes they use creative methods to visualize what they want to put on the screen. For instance, Hideo Kojima's son used to love visiting his dad at the office during the development of Metal Gear Solid because his dad used what toys to help design the game. Tune into the Elitist Podcast this Wednesday to hear the answer. You can find the Elitist on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll also have the links in the show notes. So what do you guys think?
Toys?
Toys, yes. Did he use to help design Metal Gear Solid?
What toys did he use to help?
My first guess as a joke was a cigarette.
Classic toy. What toy?
I don't really know what a Kojima can play with.
Wow. I'm gonna have to think on that.
Well, I can give you the answer right now if you'd like.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm in the know.
You're in the know.
It is.
Redacted.
Oh.
What?
So thank you for coming, students. Please take your seats. Welcome back to Professor Rybrad's Gaming History 101. And in today's lesson, we're going to talk about arguably one of the best games of all time, the development team that made it possible. Today, we're going to be talking about the development of Chrono Trigger.
Boo!
So as somebody who's never played it, Joy, have you ever played Chrono Trigger?
That's a no.
Okay. So you guys get to learn about this, and there are some spoilers, so great.
I love a spoiler.
Yeah. So I'm sure if you've looked up on the internet top 25 games of all time, you've likely seen a mention for the Super Nintendo game by Squaresoft called Chrono Trigger. It's a classic example of how innovation, storytelling, and gameplay can be fused together to create a truly masterful video game experience. I am, of course, extremely biased on this description because, as I'm sure many of you know, it's my favorite game of all time.
You don't say.
Yes, I know, right? Never heard that one before. So the production of Chrono Trigger isn't just about making of a great game, but really the coming together of some of the greatest minds in the Japanese video game industry in the early 1990s, from art to design to programming and even music, and they dubbed themselves the Dream Team. In one of the hardest endings of the game, you get to meet the Dream Team as your reward. So now the Dream Team consisted of some of the biggest names in the Japanese video game industry and culture at the time, including Hironobu Sakaguchi, who was the creator of Final Fantasy, Yuji Horii, who was the creator of Dragon Quest, Akira Toriyama, who was the creator of Dragon Ball, Nobuo Uematsu, who was the Final Fantasy composer, and Kazuki Eikoi, who was the Final Fantasy IV designer. But it doesn't just stop there. Some of the unknowns that joined this massive team of over 60 people went on to become some of the who's who of the video game industry, hailing from Japan. Names such as writer Maso Kato for Chrono Cross, graphics designer Tetsuya Takahashi from Xenogears, graphic artist Yosuyuki Hone from Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings, and The Lost Ocean, and event planner Horiyuki Itoi from Final Fantasy IX. In 1992, the game started from a sense of camaraderie between the giants of the industry. Sakaguchi, Yuji Horii, and Akira Toriyama embarked on a computer graphics research trip to the United States. And the trio got along so swimmingly well, they decided that during the trip that they wanted to create something together, something no one had seen or done before. In an interview with the trio, they were quoted as saying, "We got all fired up about it. Normally, you think these things would have ended there, that we wouldn't have been so excited," said Horii. Sakaguchi agreed, saying, "We were really enthusiastic about it, and just talking about it was really exciting. However, once we decided we were actually going to do it for sure, we spent a year and a half thinking about all the difficulties that we encounter." So the trio knew that they had something, and that something was combining the concepts of Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy to make essentially the ultimate RPG, arranging with Enix to lend Horii to Squaresoft to complete the project. Now, I'm just thinking to myself, like, imagine that happening today, right? So, like, your top developer from Epic Games goes over to PUBG Studios and decides that they're going to make a game together. Like, that stuff wouldn't happen today.
No, not really. Just because of I don't even know the word. Like, I don't really want to call it competitiveness, but just what's that word?
Yeah, they're kind of siloed, right? They don't interact with each other. Yeah, for sure. When it comes to Chrono Trigger, originally the project was intended to be part of the Secret of Mana series. And it actually had the working title of Maru Island, which I'm so glad that they didn't go with that one. That's terrible. But the desire was actually to release this game on the Super Famicom disk drive, aka the Nintendo PlayStation. But the idea was scrapped after the console's release fell through. So it was planned to be on a 24 megabit cartridge, but ultimately they went with a 32 megabit cartridge due to additional graphics and the epic music soundtrack. So this was a much bigger game than I think they ever anticipated. So the game centers around the concept of time travel, and hence the chrono in Chrono Trigger, right? The impetus to use time travel came from Yuji Horii, who was a huge fan of the TV series The Time Tunnel. He liked the idea of the grandfather paradox surrounding the character Marl. The lighting for the game was influenced by Yoshihiko Kamada's love for the Ridley Scott film Alien and was incorporated in the game to give it a darker feel. Much of the decisions for the game were based off of sketches done by Dragon Ball creator Toriyama and allowed the team to step out of the norms from Final Fantasy games and seek grittier and more humorous themes that wouldn't be accepted for a Final Fantasy game. Which I think is kind of cool. You know, the Final Fantasy game is a formula, and really so is Dragon Quest. And so by stepping out of that and being able to kind of tell a story that wasn't just so, we got to go gather some crystals and fight this one guy who keeps stealing the crystals from us.
Right, what you would typically see.
Yeah, it was a great chance for them to create a new version of what a JRPG could be. So what made the game particularly difficult to program for came from the battle system. So rather than switching to a completely different screen when engaging enemies like you would find in Final Fantasy games, or attacking enemies on screen like Secret of Mana, they wanted a hybrid style that allowed players to see enemies on screen and decide whether to engage them or not, but still use a menu system akin to Final Fantasy to engage in battles. This made it tough because there needed to be a smooth transition from traveling to battling, and the Super Nintendo kind of wasn't exactly equipped to handle that. Now, when testing the game, players reported back that the game was too hard, which meant they had to reprogram a lot of the game to make it easier for players to figure out where they needed to go next. And one cool feature that came out of the beta testing was that they noticed testers wanted to play the game more than once, which led them to adding the New Game Plus feature, which allowed players to go back and play the game and eventually achieve alternate endings. And New Game Plus was actually invented by Chrono Trigger, which is super cool. Yeah. So the game would finally release on March 11th, 1995, selling almost 2 million copies in Japan in its first year. Eventually, it would get ported to several other consoles, including the PlayStation, Nintendo DS, iOS, Android, Steam, and the Wii. Quoting directly from the Wikipedia page, overall, critics lauded Chrono Trigger for its fantastic yet not overly complex story, simple but innovative gameplay, and high replay value afforded by multiple endings. Actually, I think there's 13 endings in total.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dang.
Now, granted, a vast majority of those endings are just very small, minute details. So it changes who's in the final cinematic, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that does change, or some of the choices that you make throughout the game will change who is in that final sequence. I have myself done all 13. So that's something I'm proud of for sure.
In a row?
In a row, yes, Donna.
I would also be proud of that. That's a lot of endings. That's a lot of endings.
And it does definitely require you to go back and go back and go back.
Oh,
but honestly,
my God.
The one thing that's cool about Chrono Trigger is that a lot of the decisions that you make throughout the game really change how the game plays. So while you're going back and trying to get the alternate endings, you can make different decisions. So it will impact how the game is played, which is fun. So if we look at some of the rankings for the game, Online Score Aggregator Games Ranking List lists the Super Nintendo version as the second highest scoring RPG and the 24th highest scoring game ever reviewed. And in 2009, Guinness World Records listed it as the 32nd most influential game in video game history. And neither of you have played it, and so I'm so disappointed.
How can they say that's influential when I've never played it?
So to wrap things up, Chrono Trigger is truly an example of what can happen when great minds come together. Its innovative approach and willingness to try new things has influenced the video game industry for decades and will for decades more to come. So thank you for attending today's Gaming History 101, and a big thank you to Sheriff Snacks for the suggestion for today's topic. Just a reminder, if you have any ideas for a story you'd like to hear, send us a message at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature your suggestion.
And when great minds come together, good things happen.
Lots of suck mechanics.
If there are no suck mechanics, they are not great minds.
I agreed, 100%.
And that will go on my epitaph.
You lost joy. All right. Well, that about does it today for us. So thank you for everybody for listening to episode 61 of Gamers Week Podcast. And a big thank you to Retro Game Club Podcast, the latest podcast, and Love Retro BTW for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us at Twitter at Gamers Week PC. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. And join us on Patreon, patreon.com/gamersweek. And finally, since you made it all the way to the end of the episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, and your podcast platform of choice. And a big thank you to Joy for joining us today. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for, thank you for the suck mechanic.
Joy, thank you very much
You're
for
very welcome.
being a guest on tonight's episode.
Very
we really
welcome.
do appreciate it.
Of course.
And before we leave, tell us how people can find you.
Oh, that's right. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/sensitivejoy. You can find me on Twitter. It's Sensitive Joy because some decade-old account doesn't want to delete their account. So it is at It's Sensitive Joy. And I'm also on YouTube, and that's Sensitive Joy TTV, because for some reason I can't just have the handle everywhere. Because,
There it is.
That's
That'd be
great.
too easy.
I've got to make it difficult for everyone. But yeah, usually on Twitter and Twitch. So yeah, I'm easy to find.
Well, thank you again, and hope everybody has a good night, and have a good one, folks.
Hey, Mom, you got to see the suck mechanic on this game. Like, what?
I was waiting for something like that.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Where are all the nutsacks?
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, patrons with benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VDSTDs things, right? Make it fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
That was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.